We know that President Trump was given advance warning of this Israeli attack. It wasn't his idea, but he certainly seems to have known about it. The question now is, will this help or hinder Trump's efforts with the Iranians? It might actually help Trump because the Iranians will know they're in a pretty weak position from a military point of view.
It's all Iranian money and Iranian plan and Iranian strategic planning. And we've known for so many years that this should be taken care of.
Let's kick off with our lead story of the day, and this is the attack on Iran. Now, Iran says Israel's attack in the early hours of this morning is a declaration of war. Israel carried out strikes on nuclear sites and describes its Operation Rising Lion as preemptive action to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear bomb. The chief of Revolutionary Guard, Hussein Salami, was among several senior Iranian leaders who were killed in the attack. Let's listen to Benjamin Netanyahu speaking overnight.
Today, the Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, as Prime Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Tonight, Israel backs those words with action.
Now, a short while ago, President Trump posted about the attack on social media. He warned of even more brutal Israeli attacks to come and called on Iran to make a deal on its nuclear programme before there is nothing left. Well, in a moment, we will be speaking with Sir Malcolm Rifkind, the former Conservative Foreign and Defence Secretary. But first, let's catch up with Tal Schneider, diplomatic and political correspondent for the Times of India. She joins us from Tel Aviv. Tal, welcome to the show. What's the mood where you are now near Tel Aviv?
Of course, I'm from the Times of Israel. It's an Israeli outlet. The mood here is very, very tense. People cancelled all of their plans. We were ordered like around 3 a.m. at night to stay indoors, to stay close to safe rooms. And, some people started to, when the morning came, they started to stock, some foods and groceries. Obviously, it's a weekend. So, I think, many people were called to reserve duty and others are just staying indoors waiting for instructions.
And was this attack, I presume, it would have come as a surprise to the citizens of Israel as well. What is the mood from the citizens today, people you've been speaking to, about how they feel about this attack? Do they think it's a good thing, or are they worried about what kind of retaliation lies ahead?
Well, it's funny that you ask that, because we've been told by our leaders that we should be dealing with Iran for so many years. This goes back like 20, 25 years of talking points about the problems that we, the grave danger that we get from Iran. And in the last 20 months, we saw this danger within our eyes, because we were attacked from Hezbollah, who is financed and being held by Iran. Hamas got money from Iran with the gruesome attack of October 7th, the massacre with Iranian money. And of course, the Houthis, the Yemen's missiles that are being shot at us every day in the last, more than a year. It's all Iranian money and Iranian plan and Iranian strategic planning. And we've known for so many years that this should be taken care of. And we felt always not protected and now, it's an historic day, I think, for the Israeli, because they've been hearing about the problems that we get from there for so many years. Again, the last 20 months has been horrific for Israelis. We've been under, dozens of rockets every day coming from Lebanon or from Syria or from Gaza and from Yemen, all backed by Iranians planning.
So are you saying that people in Israel, you can't speak for all Israelis, but are you saying that this attack would be welcomed from a security point of view?
Very much welcomed. There's a huge consensus in the public. And I would say that we're waiting for that, many years ago.
And what do you know about the Iranian retaliation? We know that there are Iranian drones making their way over to Israel. What updates do you have on that?
We were waiting for them around 11 a.m. morning time in Israel. It took them a couple of hours to get here, the drones, about 200 drones. started their journey from Iran to Israel, and they were supposed to hit Israel by 11 or 12, noon. But the Israeli Air Force was able to intercept and bring them down. So basically nothing happened other than just watching the sky and looking at it. Sometimes it feels like a bit of a Star War, if I may say so. I mean, you look at the sky, you look at the airplanes, but nothing hit the ground as far as I know. So it was scary for a short while, but around midday they announced that people can go back into their business, and it's still an emergency situation where all plans are canceled and no concerts, no shopping area, and so on. And yeah.
OK, well, look, Tal, thank you very much for that update. That's Tal Schneider, diplomatic and political correspondent for the Times of India. Well, let's now bring in Sir Malcolm Rifkind, former Conservative Foreign and Defence Secretary. Sir Malcolm, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
What's your reaction to this attack?
We've known for a very long time that the Israelis were interested and indeed enthusiastic about using their military might to try and destroy Iran's nuclear capability. But I think the timing is slightly surprising because the Americans have been in direct contact with Iran over the last few weeks, seeing if they can do a deal to get Iran to stop its nuclear program. To be fair, that has not seemed to have had very much success. They've had 6 meetings so far, and so far nothing to report. And we know that President Trump was given advance warning of this Israeli attack. It wasn't his idea, but he certainly seems to have known about it. The question now is, will this help or hinder Trump's efforts with the Iranians? It might actually help Trump because the Iranians will know they're in a pretty weak position from a military point of view.
And what do you think of the response from the UK government? Starmer and Lammy have urged all parties to show restraint, but what sort of sway does the UK have now? Because I know that Israel were very angry at the sanctioning of these two far right politicians this week. Will they be listening to what Keir Starmer and David Lammy have to say?
Well, when you think in terms of restraint, the immediate question is how the Iranians are going to react. Now, we've heard so far they've sent 100 drones, and that is actually a very minor response. That may not be because they want restraint. It may be because they have suffered very serious military damage, not just last night, but in the Israeli attacks on them a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, which severely destroyed their missile capability, much of their air defense. So they're in a very, very weak position. And it'll be interesting to see whether they can get beyond a drone attack, because they've said we consider this an act of war. Well, you don't just react with 100 drones, if that is your view, but what can they do? They cannot attack Israel in any comparable sense. They just do not have the military capability. And their economy is in a mess. Their public opinion is increasingly turning against the regime, not because they're pro-Israeli, but because they say, why are you wasting all the resources of Iran on trying to defeat Israel, who isn't a neighbor of ours, who's hundreds of miles away? Why can't you concentrate on domestic Iranian issues? So the Iranian government is in a bind, and there's no doubt about that.
Although there has been, disquiet at the Iranian regime on many fronts, and they have cracked down on their own citizens in a very authoritarian,
they are in control
way.
at the moment. They are in control at the moment, but when the economy is in a mess, as we all know in any country, particularly in an authoritarian regime, that's when the authority of the government, it doesn't disappear overnight, but it begins to seep away, and that's been happening for some time.
And look, you've got, Israel is now fighting on a number of fronts. I mean, I think my previous guest would argue that they've been fighting on a number of fronts on a while, because they've been facing the Houthis, Hezbollah, the October the 7th. They would feel they're fighting on many fronts. But how sustainable do you think that is for Israel?
Well, 2 points. First of all, yes, they have been fighting on many fronts, but as your previous contributor pointed out, whether it's the Houthi or Hezbollah or Hamas, they've all been funded and provided with weaponry in the past by Iran. That's where they get their weapons support from. Much more difficult since Assad was overthrown in Syria, and there isn't a land route from Iran through Iraq, through Syria, to help provide these arms. I think the other big question about what's happened last night The Israelis have said their target is Iran's nuclear capability. But of course, we know, and they attacked Natanz, a city in Iran, which has the uranium enrichment factory that it operates. But we know that that factory is deeply embedded in a mountain, underneath a hill, a long way down. The first report suggests that the Israelis have been able to bomb some of the uranium enrichment facility, but it still seems very unlikely that they've reached the actual crucial area where enrichment takes place, which is vital if you're going to develop a nuclear weapon. Because it's been said all along by the military commentators that Israel doesn't have that military capability. It's the Americans with what are called buster bombs. Their bombs can really penetrate way into a hillside, way into a mountain, and get to its target. So I think the big question will be, is this symbolic by Israel, saying we've damaged Iran's nuclear capability, or have they seriously damaged it? They certainly haven't yet destroyed it, but they're threatening a whole wave of further strikes. The question is, even with that, will they get beyond damaging and delaying the Iranian nuclear program, or will they actually be able to destroy it? That's a crucial question.
I also presume, following on from that, if they are determined and their goal is to completely destroy all the capacity and capability, will the Americans help them do that?
Well, 2 points on that. First of all, remember, on this issue, although they will not say it publicly, every Arab state in the Middle East, almost without exception, hopes the Israelis succeed. Because the last thing they want is Iran to have a nuclear weapon, even if its primary purpose is aggression against Israel. And of course, the real concern that people understand is that if Iran did get a nuclear weapon, regardless of the Israeli reaction, countries like Saudi Arabia, possibly Egypt, other Arab countries would say, well, we need one for our own protection. So you get a nuclearization of the whole region, which nobody in their right mind would like to see. So on this issue, although the Arab countries will criticize Israel, their private view is, if you can seriously damage nuclear capability in Iran, that is good news for us. In terms of the Trump position, it's very, very difficult to work this one out, because Trump and Netanyahu are not getting on terribly well at the moment. But on this issue, they will be looking for some sort of mutual support. Now, it appears that Trump didn't say to Israel, if you go ahead and attack Iran, then all deals are off as far as we're concerned. We will be strongly and bitterly critical. He clearly never said that. And he might actually believe that by demonstrating to the world Iran's military weakness, which is what the Israelis are doing, their inability from Iran to seriously deter Israel from further attacks, that might actually help in their private negotiations with the Iranians, by saying, let's find a diplomatic way to resolve this issue rather than a military way.
Well, ABC News has just reported that a correspondent has spoken to Donald Trump on the phone, and Trump is reported to have said, I think it's been excellent. We gave them a chance. They didn't take it. They got hit hard, very hard. They got hit about as hard as you're going to get hit. And there's more to come, a lot more. So, I mean, very, very tough language there from Donald Trump. I mean, I suppose, Malcolm, there will be a lot of consensus, as you say, about, making sure that Iran cannot develop this nuclear capability. But doing something so provocative out of nowhere while these talks, there are sort of diplomatic efforts going on, is there a danger that just, inflames another front? Yes, Iran, as you say, doesn't probably have the military capability to match Israel, particularly if America gets involved. But we know Iran, plays very dirty. We know that they're a kind of threat in this country. We know that they have operatives all over the world causing trouble. I mean, is this the right way to go about it?
Well, I think if one tries to look at it objectively, first of all, most of what Israel has done in the last few months has infuriated the Arab neighbors of Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, other countries of that kind. Although they will not in any way condone Israel on this particular attack on Iran, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, they hope it achieves its purpose. So it's not inflaming the region in that sense, because that is, I think, where my enemy's enemy is not my friend, but it can sometimes be quite convenient. I think what is more complicated is where do the Israelis go from here? They've shown that they can send waves of aircraft right across to Iran, which they do not share a border with. It's a pretty dangerous and difficult task in itself. They've shown that they can do that. They've indicated, Netanyahu in his remarks last night indicated this was going to be the first of a series of attacks of this kind. I come back to the point that they have not been able yet to show evidence that they're going to do more than at most damage Iran's nuclear program rather than destroy it.
Okay.
That is unlikely to be within them. I may be wrong. And to be perfectly honest, if I am wrong, I'll be only too delighted, because we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon or a weapon capability. But I think that's going to be more for the Americans to address in their negotiations, rather than what the Israelis are likely to be able to deliver from what we know.
And final question to you. A government minister was out and about this morning, the industry minister, Sarah Jones, and she sort of said that, she sort of indicated that Britain hadn't been involved in any of these attacks, but didn't rule out British involvement in the defence of Israel if Iran fired ballistic missiles, as was the case in October. Is that the right position?
I think this is a slightly more complicated situation. I think the United States would certainly be of assistance. Israel and the United Kingdom might wish to do so, but the question is, do the Israelis need that additional military support from the United Kingdom, which would be not symbolic, but it would not be dramatic. They're, first of all, capable of defending themselves, as we have seen, to a significant degree. But I think, given the nature of the Trump administration and the strong language you've just been quoting President Trump is using, I think that's going to be a very important part of any response if Iran does overreact. It's very interesting, given the recent controversy over the Chagos Islands and the deal that Britain did with Mauritius on that, that the Americans, at this very moment, if they need to use their aircraft to attack Iran, because of Iranian behavior, these aircraft will take off from Diego Garcia. That's the significance, not just symbolic, but real military significance and relevance of that particular base remaining under British and American control, which what the recent deal with Mauritius will not endanger.